That is the mighty Gonbo Rangjom, and I am here for the media drive experience of the Nissan Tekton. So I'm Kushan Mitra, contributing editor at ThePrint, and this is the most, let's say, exhilarating media drive I've ever been on. We started out yesterday when we drove from Chandigarh to Manali, and today we're driving past the newly constructed Shinkula Pass, which we've already done at 16,800 feet. And now we are on the plains of Gonbo Rangjom at 14,400 feet. That's still pretty darn high. The air is quite thin out here. Not having a difficulty breathing, but still, if you ever come to these heights, please be prepared. It's no joke, these heights. And despite the height, the Nissan Tekton has been performing very well. This is the T280, the version with the 1.3-liter turbocharged engine with 163 PS of power. Now, many people will know that the Nissan Tekton is the cousin, or rather the sibling of the Renault Duster. It's made in the same factory. It's got the same engine. It's pretty much got the same profile. There have been some changes. Nissan has worked on the headlights and the entire front fascia. But on the whole, it's the same car. It's still a great car to drive. There's also the T160, which is the slightly less powerful 1-liter engine, which I hope to drive later on. But I've been driving this in DCT mode, and I'll tell you how it is to drive once I'm inside the car and once we start heading now to Zangla, which is going to be a very interesting night halt tonight before we head off to Leh tomorrow. So I'm driving the Nissan Tekton through the wonderful roads that the Border Roads Organization have built through the Zanskar Valley. This is spectacular countryside. You can see the folds and creases on the Himalayan mountains out here because they were pushed up by the Indian subcontinent when it crashed into the Eurasian plate. This is a fantastic place if you ever want to study geology. But I'm not talking about geology right now. I'm talking about the Nissan Tekton and a few comments about the car. Now, yes, it is a rebadged and reskinned slightly Renault Duster. And when I drove the Renault Duster, it was in the Dehradun area, which is much lower altitude like this. In such high altitude zones, small turbocharged engines do feel a bit wanting for power. That said, when I drove the Volkswagen Virtus here a few years ago, well, that was fantastic. This engine does try for a little bit of power. It's a very successful engine, the 1.3-liter engine. It does service for Mercedes-Benz. In fact, the A180, that also has this very engine. It's a fantastic engine. I really love the engine, but the gearbox does feel very tuned for the city. Let me explain why. So I'm driving the 6-speed DCT on this car, and on this car sometimes there's some uphill stretches, particularly on rough patches. Again, Border Roads Organization does a fantastic job, but there are, say, 10% of the road is still being built. Over there you do feel at times the car is a tad underpowered, so you have to use the flappy paddles that I have, and I shift down, and the car does shift up again, even though I don't want it to shift up. So I shift down to second gear and it just goes up to third far too quickly, doesn't stay on second, which you don't face with the manual, but an automatic is just so much easier. The other thing I have to say about the Tekton, now it does also have a 110 PS 1-liter engine. Now that is only available with a 6-speed manual. I have noticed with all SUVs, the C-segment SUVs, the smaller engine option or the naturally aspirated engine option is the one that sells more. And it really does help if that particular engine option came with an automatic. So I think that's one miss. I was talking to Saurabh Vatsa of Nissan India earlier today, yesterday actually, and he said, well, there's a lot of complication in the factory, because both Renault and Nissan have started manufacturing. So maybe eventually an automatic version of the 1-liter might come, but it isn't available right now. That said, this car handles beautifully. Now these roads are twisty, whatever you say about them, extremely twisty. You're going through all sorts of little patches, and it's been performing wonderfully well. So I've really enjoyed this car. So I'll give you my closing comments in a bit. So now let's get to Leh. So I've had a fantastic drive driving the Nissan Tekton through the mountains and the plateaus of Ladakh. And right now we are doing our last day of driving down the valley of the Zanskar River. We have spent the night in a campsite on the meadow of the Zanskar River. And you can see how powerful the river is. See how it's carved that mountain behind me. It's cliff with sheer cliff faces. The river has been moving away towards that mountain and is flowing very fast on that side. So it's a really powerful river. The Zanskar will, of course, put all its water into the Indus, and that will eventually get to Pakistan. But a little bit more about the Tekton. You see, any car can go very fast in a straight line. But what the Tekton has shown out for me during this drive is how well it changes direction on these twisty Himalayan roads. And then I also have to give a huge word of appreciation for the Border Roads Organization. They have done a fantastic job maintaining the roads. You know, coming down the new road via Shinkula top towards Padam and Zangla, fantastic job by the Border Roads Organization. Other than a few patches, rough patches where they're still working, and because these rivers do carve out the mountains and there are landslides, and it's really, really tough work, but the Border Roads Organization does a great job so that we can bring cars like the Tekton to such places. It's been a fantastic drive, and I'm looking forward to the drive towards Leh today and the finals of the World Cup tonight. So I'm about 13 odd kilometers from my hotel in Leh. We have entered the outskirts of Leh, the army camps, the fuel depots and all of that. So I want to make some concluding points to this video. First things first, kudos to Nissan India, the entire team at Nissan India, as well as the guys who organized this entire journey from the campsites, the hotels, the flights. It takes a lot of logistical planning to do a 60-car convoy from Chandigarh to Leh. It's no joke. And kudos to them to doing that, and also kudos to Nissan for not just organizing this but doing this trip, because when you drive such long distances, and it's almost 800 kilometers from Chandigarh to Leh, you get to see the vehicle, warts and all. So you see the cons of the vehicle, you see the little bits that maybe Nissan can improve on this car, but you also get to see the great positives about this vehicle as well. And there are positives. I mean, I really like this vehicle. The issue is that the C-SUV segment is extremely competitive. There are over 30 models available in this segment alone. And this not only has to compete against the Duster, which hasn't been doing all that well on the market, but compete with the likes of the Creta, the Victoris, Grand Vitara, and so many others. So it's going to be really challenging for Nissan, because they've had a rough few years in the past, right? I mean, for 4 years, the only vehicle they sold was the Magnite. Earlier this year, they came out with the Gravite, which is their version of the Triber from Renault. But, with the launch of the Gravite and now the Tekton, they're showing some initiative. They're, organizing such a drive, which must have been quite expensive, also shows intent on behalf of the Japanese manufacturer. They've not been having a great time of it, not just in India but also elsewhere in the world. So hopefully this shows that Nissan is taking India seriously, and I wish the Tekton well, because it's a nice car. It's a nice car to drive, it's a nice car to own. I'm sure it'll be a nice car to own if they can get their service and sales back in order. Anyhow, we are now less than 10 kilometers to go. I can see some green patches as we approach Leh, back in this wonderful, wonderful city. But I will be back here for some other drive sooner or later, and you can watch that hopefully at ThePrint as well if you're subscribed. We have a lot of awesome automotive content, not just car reviews, but also road trips and other stuff coming up in the next few months. So be sure to subscribe to The Print, and do follow us on all our social media handles, and follow me on my social media handles as well. Thank you so much.